Good morning, I'm Gretchen Hall. It is a Tuesday, the 6th day of May, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. Following fatal transport tragedies at NAIA and SCTEX, President Bongbong Marcos demands tougher safety protocols, insisting on penalties for violators. Senator Bongo and Representative Erwin Tulfo continue to lead in Pulse Asia's final senatorial survey before the midterm polls. Pulse Asia Research President Ronald Holmes says candidates outside the top 12 could still secure a win if backed by administration machinery in the final days. And the bounty for information on the co-mastermind behind businessman Anson Ke's killing has been increased to 10 million pesos. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, the College of Cardinals held their 11th General Congregation as preparations for the upcoming Papal conclave continue. A total of 170 cardinals participated in the meeting, including 132 cardinal electors. Discussions during the gathering covered key topics such as migration, synodality, and unity, with over 20 interventions addressing global conflicts and the faith of migrants. Cardinals also reflected on their responsibility to support the future pope and strengthen the Church's sense of communion. Meanwhile, the Vatican confirmed that all 133 cardinal electors have now arrived in Rome. It added that preparations at the Sistine Chapel and accommodations at Casa Santa Marta are nearly complete. Red curtains have also been installed at the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, where the newly elected pope will deliver his first public blessing. The conclave is set to begin on May 7. And for more updates on the upcoming Papal conclave, we have Mon Gualvez joining us live from the Vatican. Mon, the conclave is set for tomorrow. What is the atmosphere like over there? Are people nervous? Are people excited? What are they talking about?
Gretchen, good morning. The people here at the Vatican are actually excited in the upcoming conclave tomorrow. Pero syempre ngayong araw, this is the last leg of the congregation of the cardinals, that which this is the perfect time for them to speak up kung sakasakali sa mga issues na concerning ng Catholic Church sa mga panahon na ito. No? So kahapon napakarami nga na-discuss, you've mentioned some of them. At ito ay nilahukan ng nasa 179 cardinals, including the 130 cardinals na inaasahan na boboto dito sa mangyayaring conclave. At talagang nabanggit nga yung canon law and the role of the Vatican City-State, yung missionary nature of the church, the role of Caritas in defending the poor, and the presence of so many journalists was highlighted, seen as a sign that the gospel has meaning for the world today, as a call to responsibility. Siguro nabanggit din ito ng mga cardinals dahil talagang nag-aabang kami kahapon dun sa labas ng Synod Hall na pinag-i-stay nila for the gathering, for the congregation, at talagang lahat are persistent to ask the cardinals, some of the cardinals who are going out dun sa area, pero talagang mailap sila at matipid sa kanilang mga sagot as they had their oath of secrecy para nga hindi masyadong mapag-usapan na yung mga bagay na ito. Although naglalabas naman ng Holy See Press Office ng summary of what they are talking about inside. No? So the people here are excited, anticipating actually ang marami sa mga taong nag-aabang sa pagsisimula ng conclave tomorrow, May 7. Gretchen.
Mon, we talked about several issues nga, no? Including the global conflicts at hand, migration policies, and of course, at the center of all of that is the relevance of the Catholic Church in the middle of all of this turmoil. Give us a sense of the conversations you're having with the people there, the priests that you get to talk to, the ambassadors, the diplomats. What kind of leader are they looking for when you get to ask?
Yes, actually, yung mga serious concerns ngayon sinasabi ng mga priests dito sa Vatican is yung talaga, gender equality, issues on war, migration, environment, mga bagay na talagang nasimulan na ni Pope Francis during his term. Kaya nga ang parang tanong nila, will this be a continuation of what Pope Francis has started na bilang leader ng simbahang Katolika. No? So ito yung mga inaabangan kung ito ba ay mapagpapatuloy ng mapipili nilang susunod na Santo Papa, or will they shift to another parang pamumuno, no? Dahil alam naman natin, majority of the cardinals being elected or being appointed ay talagang pinangunahan ni Pope Francis, at iyon ang mga kasali sa cardinal electors na mangyayari nga sa conclave, no? So sinasabi din na posibleng maging mabilis yung mangyayaring conclave, at ito yung mga inaabangan, no, dito sa mangyayaring conclave starting tomorrow, May 7, Gretchen.
Okay, well, tomorrow natin malalaman kung may consensus nga ba dun sa continuity after what Pope Francis had done for the Catholic Church. But speaking of the papabiles, one name is also emerging as a papabile. It seems that Cardinal Ambo David is being tagged as a dark horse. Are you hearing things about him?
Yes, Gretchen. Actually, kasi yung mga papabili natin, no, dahil ito yung sa congregation or gatherings of the cardinals, dito kasi nabibigyan ng pagkakataon yung mga cardinals who would want to speak up, no, para mas malaman at mas maintindihan din ng kanilang mga fellow cardinal electors kung sino yung may mga pananaw na maaaring makakatugon sa mga serious concerns na kinakaharap ngayon ng simbahan. And Cardinal Ambo David is one na mga nagsasalita, no, dito sa mga ginagawa ng gatherings. So we just don't know kasi nga all of them are still eligible to be one na makonsider as the new pope, no? Kaya naman itong gatherings na ito, itong congregation na ito is very, very important because this is just the perfect time for them if they want to raise an issue, if they want to raise something na gusto nilang parang dapat maging concern. So ito yung parang nagsasalita na ang isang kardinal sa mga posible niyang gawin kung siya man ang magiging Santo Papa para makonsider ng kanyang mga kapwa cardinal electors, Gretchen. And today, just to add it, magdagdag lang ako, no, today is the last day of the gathering of the cardinals, no. So after nito, talagang start na ng mangyayaring conclave that will begin with the mass starting tomorrow morning.
Okay, have you visited the Sistine Chapel? What is it like over there? Marami na bang tao nag-aabang? And ano yung mga paghahanda na kanilang ginawa? Kahit from outside, your viewpoint.
Oo, nako, bawal eh. Bawal lumapit doon sa Sistine Chapel. Medyo naghigpit na sila ng security dito sa area. Lalo't nga dyan, magsasagawa ng pagboto yung mga cardinal electors once na mag-start yung conclave. The only preparation na na-reveal nila sa media right now is yung chimney, no? Yung paglalabasan ng usok that will show or that will give us a guide kung ano yung resulta ng naging pagboto ng mga cardinal electors. But other than that, wala na, no? Pero yung mga iba pang mga updates in terms of yung mga staff na mag-assist sa mga cardinal electors, nagkaroon na rin sila ng oath of secrecy once they started itong paglilingkod sa mga cardinal electors inside the Sistine Chapel and even in the Casa Santa Marta. Gretchen.
Mon, what are we to expect for tomorrow? What's going to happen exactly as the cardinals enter the Sistine Chapel for the conclave?
Yes, tomorrow mangyayari, magkakaroon muna ng mass, no, sa St. Peter's Basilica dito sa likod ko. Dito magsasama-sama lahat ng mga cardinal electors as they will attend a mass early in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning here, alas 4 ng hapon diyan sa Pilipinas, at pagkatapos noon, pagdating ng hapon, dito na pupunta sa Sistine Chapel ang mga cardinal electors at doon na sila start na ikukulong para nga magsimula na yung unang pagboto sa conclave, at inaasang ilalabas yung resulta na yan ng gabi, alas 8 ng gabi dito. So 7 or 8 p.m. lalabas yung unang usok dito sa Sistine Chapel, and then after that mangyayari na yung mas maraming beses na botohan kinabukasan May 8, and sunod-sunod na yan, Gretchen.
Yun nga, no? Tapos magkakaroon din yata ng oath and Litany of Saints. Magpuprosesyon ba sila mula sa St. Peter's? Maglalakad all the way. Oo.
Yes, oo, tama ka dyan. So this will be very, very ceremonial na makikita ng tao, ng publiko as they papunta no dun sa Sistine Chapel from the St. Peter's Basilica. At yung pagstay naman nila sa Casa Santa Marta, they have an option, no? Pwede silang ihatid doon, pwede rin silang maglakad, pero syempre on a route na talagang safe for them at talagang that they can maintain their serenity at yung pananalangin pa rin nila dahil bawal na sila mag-usap-usap once they entered once they started the conclave. Gretchen.
Okay, Mon, just as a final question, no, are the Filipinos excited there? I mean, for the possibility of having Cardinal Tagle's name in the bag as one of the papabilis. Another man has been added to that list, Cardinal Ambo David. Ano yung mga sinasabi ng mga Pilipino dyan? Siyempre, on one hand, merong Filipino pride, but on the other, yung possibility na talagang mananalo at also kung siya nga ba yung kinakailangan ng simbahan sa ngayon?
Most of the Filipinos na nakakausap natin dito sa Vatican, Gretchen, talagang excited and parang talagang sabi mo nga no, Filipino pride, kaya kung sila ang tatanungin, mas gusto talaga nila ng mga Filipino cardinals ang maaring mapagpilian at maging susunod na Santo Papa. Pero dahil nga patuloy yung pakikiusap ng CBCP or Catholic Bishops Conference of the Philippines, maging ng mga mismong kardinal na nandito ngayon, talagang mas dapat ipanalangin at hindi pag-usapan yung mga pagiging kandidato ng mga naturang Pilipinong kardinal sa mangyayaring conclave or conclave, no? Kaya talagang this is the perfect time na ipagdasal natin sila at ito rin yung perfect time para mas ipagdasal natin na yung susunod na Santo Papa ay talagang leader na maaaring makatulong sa ating relihiyon as a whole. They are saying that, Gretchen.
Well, Mon, kasama mo kami sa pagdarasal. Pero mukhang masarap din magdasal dyan sa likod mo. Napakatahimik, napakapayapa. Say a prayer for us as we head on to the conclave that is about to go down tomorrow. We hope that in the general congregation today, talagang ma-thresh out yung mga issues that need to be talked about. But in the meantime, please do say a prayer for us. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's 2 a.m. over there with Daylight Saving Time. That was Mon Gualvez reporting to us live from the Vatican. Re-election of Senator Bongo remains the front-runner in the final Pulse Asia senatorial survey ahead of the 2025 elections. Go topped the poll with a 62.2% rating. All other top 12 senatorial bets posted lower ratings, except for the lawmaker, whose numbers slightly rose from 61.9%. Representative Erwin Tulfo trailed behind at 42.4%. Meantime, Pulse Asia Research President Ronald Holmes believes that candidates outside the top 12 still have a chance to win if backed by administration machinery in the final days.
Ako lahat ng may double digit rito ay may pagkakataon pa na makapasok. No? Kasi hindi naman ganun kalayuan ang kanilang suporta. So dito nadadagdag basically yung grupo na maaaring nagmomobilisa ng suporta para sa kanila. Kung lalong-lalo na noong 2019, instructive dyan yung kung kandidato ka ng administrasyon.
Meanwhile, the National Security Council is investigating candidates allegedly funded by foreign sources for their 2025 campaigns. During a Senate hearing yesterday, Comelec said it is waiting for the results of the NSC's investigation. The poll body noted that foreign funds could be used for massive disinformation operations. If proven, not just the candidate but an entire political party could be disqualified. The agency is now seeking help from the Bangko Sentral to trace possible foreign source campaign funds through anti-money laundering monitoring.
Sana ma-monitor din yung mga pagpapadala ng pondo, lalo na coming from the outside. Kasi po, siyempre pagka po tumulong ang mga yan, maliban sa tulong sa pamamagitan ng social media, financial na tulong po eh. Pwedeng ipang kontrata o pang-hire na mga services na magkakaroon ng mga massive disinformation at misinformation. So sana po sabi namin, when it comes to the anti-money laundering, maipatupad natin ng maayos, makita namin yung flow ng pera. Ang problema po kasi kapag yung pondo na o pera nanggaling na sa mga negosyante o negosyo na nandito na sa Pilipinas.
It is just 6 days away, and the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting Command Center in Manila is all set for the May 12 elections. They've partnered with PLDT to ensure stronger internet support for a smooth and credible vote monitoring process. Here is the report.
They can do something about it. They can disqualify all of them.
That was a challenge of Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting Chairman Evelyn Singson to COMELEC Chairman George Garcia. Singson made a statement during the launch of the PPCRV Command Center at the PLDT building in Manila. For the PPCRV, recurring election issues like vote buying and personality-based voting continue to pose challenges. In response, COMELEC Chairman George Garcia stressed that the solution lies with the voters.
Nasa mga mamamayan, dapat talaga i-guide natin sila paano po makapamili ng tama, lalo ang kabataan.
To help ensure a clean and credible election on May 12, the PPCRV is deploying around 350,000 volunteers to monitor the transmission and counting of votes. The organization has partnered with PLDT for stronger internet support.
Hindi na ho trabaho to ng mga matatanda lang at mga ka-age natin, pero yung kabataan talaga. Smart provided mobile phones, SIM cards, prepaid load and volunteer shirts to empower thousands of youth, making them active participants in protecting our democratic process.
This year, the PPCRV and COMELEC will conduct an unofficial parallel count for both local and national positions.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more stories right after the break. Good morning. You're watching Morning Matters here on One News. President Bongbong Marcos orders stricter safety protocols following recent deadly transport tragedies at NAIA and SCTEX. Here is the report.
The departure entrance at NAIA Terminal 1 is now open again following the ramming of an SUV that killed 2 people, including a 5-year-old girl. The site has been cleaned and cleared. but the memory of the incident still lingers. A temporary barricade has been set up where the deadly crash took place. The bollard or vehicle barrier that failed to stop the SUV has already been replaced and reinforced with concrete. Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon personally inspected the site and could not hide his dismay over the defective bollard.
Makikita mo kagad sa bollard na bumigay na hindi siya ganun katibay. Obviously, nakalusot eh. Ang purpose nga ng bollard, dapat yun tuminto na dun mismo. Mr. Ramon Ang and I spoke about it. Most likely, they will be replaced by the operator, by San Miguel.
The 47-year-old driver of the SUV is now in custody of the Philippine National Police Aviation Security Group. Police say the driver was dropping off a passenger at the airport when the incident occurred.
Nung umalis po yung kanyang pasaheros, nakita natin na umabante. And then pagbalik po niya sa sasakyan, and then when he attempt na paalis na po sana, ay pumabante yung sasakyan, nataranta ang kanyang apakan. Akala niya is yung brake, but it was the accelerator.
He has tested negative for illegal drugs, but is facing multiple charges. Meanwhile, in light of the incident at NAIA and a deadly pile-up at the SC Textile Plaza that killed 10 people, President Bongbong Marcos has ordered full accountability. He has directed Dizon to tighten rules on driver's license issuance and conduct a nationwide safety audit of bus companies. Marcos insists that companies failing to meet safety standards must face sanctions.
We owe it to the victims and their families to act, not only with sympathy, but with resolve. These lives will not be lost in vain. We will make the changes that need to be made. We will demand accountability where it is due.
And to discuss the country's transportation safety issues, we're joined by public transport expert and advocate Rob C. Welcome to Morning Matters. You came here on a bike.
I do, Gretchen, and thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here and to talk about, I guess, the transport issues of the day.
Marami ka bang kasamang nagbabike kanina?
Actually, every day naman eh. Pero today, medyo late yung gising ko, so parang mas konti.
Okay.
Parang mas marami talaga sila between the hours of 6 a.m. to 7:30. Doon talaga makikita mo yung mga nagbabike to work dito sa Pilipinas.
Even with what's been happening, there's still, or is there a significant decrease already from, I mean, what we experienced in 2022, right after the pandemic?
Yeah. Well, I think when you talk about the evolution of cycling ridership in the Philippines, for instance, I think definitely compared to the pandemic, yung nangyari kasi sa pandemic is lumalabas bigla yung na nag-bike to work, yung mga dating nagkukotse, dating may sariling motor and stuff. You're talking about a population that didn't used to bike because of safety issues. Kasi nung pandemic, we remember na ang daming mga bike lanes na naitayo ng mga LGUs, ng national government, and then gradually, for many reasons, parang nawala yung mga to. So yung natira na lang are yung mga bike commuters that were there even before these safety measures were established.
Who have no choice, mostly.
Yeah. Who
right?
have no choice, but also the ones who choose to, di ba? Parang because they know that it's hindi lang better for the environment, but maybe in their own personal cases also saves them time also on the road. Parang malaking bagay yun yung hawak mo yung sarili mo oras.
Okay, let's go to the recent accidents. No, isa-isahin natin. No, let's begin with the NAIA crash. Were the bollards really to blame? I mean, netizens have been looking into that. What is a bollard supposed to do anyway?
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess maybe it's easy to, parang when you look at a road crash and you try to analyze it, actually parang it's very interesting kasi parang in the field of engineering, may tinatawag din tayong mga forensics na ginagawa. Parang it's kind of like you look at a scene and you find out what happened exactly. And I think it's easy to look at the bollard and say that it failed to prevent the car from moving into the bystanders dun sa NAIA. But then I think we also have to realize ano yung parang chain of events that led to this happening, di ba? And you can look at a number of factors. Is it because the vehicle did not have features like assistive braking and speed limiting like what's regulated in other countries? Is it because nakatulog yung driver? Because
Naapakan lang daw eh.
Naapakan lang daw.
Akala break.
Yeah. Akala break.
Hindi natin alam, baka nagsi-cellphone.
Yeah. Hindi natin alam, baka nagsi-cellphone, baka kulang sa tulog, baka we don't really know what happened unless we're able to be in the mind of the driver.
So that bollard is supposed to stop the car?
Supposedly, yes. Pero in this case, it seems like baka for whatever reason it wasn't able to because of the way it was constructed, because of the way it was designed. But I think when you look at the crash, parang aside from the bollard, there are many other factors we have to examine it. The driver's state of mind, the fact that baka parang napadrive siya kahit kulang siya sa tulog because there's no other transportation option na viable sa kanya para makapuntang airport. Unlike other airports in other countries na meron tayong reliable na airport bus or airport train na pwede mong gamitin kahit kulang ka sa tulog, di ba?
Well, it's so sad that one single mistake or reckless moment could lead to a tragedy. I mean, there is a 5-year-old girl who passed away because of this. Another girl or man passed away. Two lives claimed. But looking at SC Techs, 12 people died because of that. What is your take on what happened over at SC Techs?
No, I think it's also like parang emblematic of what I call the ongoing road safety emergency in our country. Because I think I like to use the term emergency because let's put it this way, right? Every day, there are multiple planes that fly between Manila and Cebu, for instance. Yung airplane na gamit doon is the Airbus A320, which seats an average maybe of 150 people. Now, yung total road deaths na nare-record natin in the Philippines, road fatalities from road accidents are around 12,000. These are the latest figures from the WHO and the DOH. Now, 12,000 people dying every day. That's more than one plane crash of an A320 per week. So imagine mo parang kung every week meron tayong isang buong eroplano na nagka-crash, we would call it definitely an aviation emergency. We would close NAIA immediately. But we don't do this. And for some reason, we fail to recognize na porque it's happening on our roads instead of in the air. We don't see the emergency in the same way, but I think we definitely should.
That's 12,000 for the whole year of 2022, right?
Correct, yeah.
And in 2023, that became 13,000.
Yeah.
And in 2024, we don't have data from the PSA, but the HPG or the Highway Patrol Group actually released some numbers saying that there's a 35% spike in the number of fatalities.
Oh, there you go.
In 2024. But what's disturbing is 87% of the incidents were caused by reckless driving, such as overtaking, bad overtaking, improper turning, speeding, drunk driving, overloading, using mobile phones.
Yes.
How much of this do you think can be cured by just addressing driver training, driver certification, and just professionalizing the way that these drivers are out on the road?
Sure. I think it's interesting because when people say use the terms reckless driving or driver error or distracted driving, of course there are things we can do to change individual drivers. And sabihin natin, a lot of the times people say that a road crash is due to human error. But I think one thing we also have to examine is that in your system that you design, your system of education, engineering, and enforcement, human error is inevitable. But there are many things we can do to make it less likely and to make the consequences of human error less severe. So aside from changing the behavior of individual drivers, we can make it so we can design our roads in a way so that when a driver makes a mistake, it doesn't cause people to die. Maybe
Like the bollards for one, effective bollards?
Effective bollards for one can be. If the road is designed in a way where you use techniques such as traffic calming, where people will naturally slow down even in the absence of a police officer. But aside from that, if people are aware, for instance, that there's consistent enforcement, then even before they arrive at NAIA, they've already been trained to drive in a way that's abiding by the laws. So,
Katulad ng pag pumunta ka ng BGC, at alam mo stricto yung mga enforcer doon. Pag pumunta ka ng Makati,
Correct.
mahuhuli ka.
Yeah.
So that serves to deter or discipline the drivers of some sort.
Yeah.
But dito sa SC Techs, actually I shared this, no? I drove to Zambales recently, 6 hours one way. And while I was driving, I was afraid that at one point I'd make a mistake kasi meron siyang mga segments na medyo narrow and mababa yung barrier. And the cars were speeding quite fast. And if you make one wrong turn, it would send you to the barriers, which I feeling ko, yung nakita ko yung video, sabi ko, ito yung nai-imagine ko na isang mali ko lang o antukin lang ako o mabaliw lang ako, it could send us into a terrible accident. Don't you think also that, pwedeng maglagay doon ng mga parang pampagising, Paano ba yun? How do we protect people on our highways?
Pwede naman. I think yung pambagising is one thing. I think there are interventions like yung tinatawag na rumble strips which are used in highways all around the world. I think I have to read the latest research on their overall effectivity. But aside from that, kasi there's many things we can do. Yung tulad ng sabi natin, yung consistent enforcement ng overspeeding, for instance. Yung ibang driver kasi parang nasasanay na sila sa mga highway na over the speed limit sila. To the point na when it comes time to slow down, masyado na silang over the speed limit na hindi rin nila makontrol, for instance. That's one thing that's possible. Another thing is that in other countries, aside from educating the driver, meron na po silang regulation sa mga vehicles nila na parang it's interesting what they have in the EU right now. If you buy a new car in Europe, meron na siyang installed na GPS speed limiter na alam na ng kotse kung ano yung speed limit kung saan ka nagda-drive at automatic na bawal mag-accelerate yung car above the speed limit. So hindi na yan control ng driver.
So tech-driven.
Tech-driven na, yung kotse na mismo yung sumusunod sa batas. So I think that's actually an interesting intervention that we should consider including in the Philippines. Yeah.
Well, Secretary Vince Dizon said that people do not feel safe on our roads and the road safety system is broken. Do you agree with him? In what ways is it broken?
You know, I think it's a great thing to say, and I think he couldn't have picked a better time to say it. I think I guess real talk lang whenever like Gretchen, I told you I bike to work every day, and sometimes I talk to people about why they don't want to bike to work, and yung number one reason every time is yung sabi nila is parang I don't feel safe. So when you think about it, yung road safety becomes foundational to why yung society natin is becoming so, yung tinatawag nilang car-centric. Because parang even though gusto mo mag-bike, gusto mo maglakad either all the way to work or to where you can take public transportation, yung iba kasi parang instead of doing that, they take their own cars because they don't feel safe. So I think si Sec Dizon, when he said that, he's really calling out a reality which everybody already believes.
Which is the root of the problem.
That's the root of the problem.
And that's why yung sinabi ko kanina kung marami bang natatakot na mag-bike ngayon, no?
Yeah.
Kasi it is an option, but it is another thing to get people on the roads to actually do that. What do you think of his recommendations to reduce allowable driving hours for public utility bus drivers from 6 to 4 and a drug testing every 90 days, implementation of the speed limiter law, and a 90-day suspension for abusive drivers reported by the public? Is that enough?
You know, I think it's a great start, actually. When you talk about the limit on how long you can drive, I mean, this is a basic safety regulation, which I think is long overdue in the Philippines. So I really commend the action of Sec Dizon for bringing these kind of industry practices to everybody's attention. I think it's high time that we have a safer industry for everybody. And I think when you talk about what's enough, I think this is a great start, but there's also much, much more that we can do as a country to make our roads safer. I think actually, when I say it's a road safety emergency, what I also mean there is that people, when it's an emergency, we have to start beginning to accept that things will have to change. And sometimes these things that will change will not always be easy for everybody. We'll all have to learn how to drive slower. Let's admit it, parang so many of us, pag palapit na sa red light, parang yung unang gagawin, kukunin yung cellphone para i-check yung Facebook because you'll be there. But it's a kind of thing where habits like that will have to change if we want to make our roads safer for everybody.
Of course, on the other side of this is enforcement.
That's right.
And yung no contact apprehension is suspended yun. So I mean, how do we have you heard of many people getting tickets for overspeeding in our highways? Nahuhuli ba? At pangalawa, enough ba yung penalties? What should government do when it comes to that? And has it been an effective deterrent, yung penalties?
Yeah. Well, I think when you talk about something like no contact apprehension, of course, we know that the matter is still being deliberated by the Supreme Court. But I hope that at least the public will have an answer soon, because when you look at any developed country, parang yung cameras are a basic tool of law enforcement. If you ask us to enforce our traffic laws without cameras, it's almost like telling somebody to fight fires without using water. Parang these days, it's the most basic and one of the most effective pieces of technology. Because at least when you get a ticket using a camera-based system, kita mo dun yung ebidensya. Parang the camera recording will show. May resibo ka kaagad. And at least kung...
and you don't go through the human factor where bribes could happen.
That's right. And I think the other thing is, at least kung gusto mong i-dispute, at least meron kang basehan kung ano yung i-dispute mo eh. So, and I think this is I think this is a really good way to start. But the most important thing about no contact apprehension is hindi naman nagbago halos yung mga penalties when it was implemented. Pero yung nagbago dun is the consistency of the enforcement. Eh. Kahit wala kang naka-station na traffic enforcer dun, may nanghuli sa'yo. So I think it's that kind of consistency, that kind of discipline that can be built when your system uses technology to make enforcement something that applies to everybody and not just the people that are na parang just happen to be in front of an enforcer.
Well, if we talk about enforcement, it's going to take us a whole day. But I want to go to something more important, which is the system of transportation. What for you has been working in other countries that you'd like to take here? Masyadong buhol-buhol yung problema natin sa transportation. Where do we even begin? And what can we realistically change at this point? Yung Makati subway, I mean, that has been halted because of territorial issues, the dispute between both cities. Kung yun nga lang yung right of way, hindi natin ma-solve, di ba? What is realistically possible at this point? When you go around the world, when you read about infrastructure systems, anong naiisip mong dalhin?
Yeah. Well, I think when you talk about parang where we can begin, I think it's fitting that we started talking about road safety because for me, yan yung pinaka-foundation ng kahit anong successful transport policy. And I think we go back to the fact that parang ano yung number one excuse of people for not walking, for not cycling, for not taking public transport, for using their own motor vehicles. Yung pangunahing statement nila is always road safety. Delikado eh. Parang mas komportable sila kung meron silang kotse na parang may armor, parang nasa loob sila ng tangke compared to going out to the streets which some people describe as war zones. Eh. So if we make our roads safe for everybody, then people will be able to use different modes of transport. Because what people don't realize is parang pag mas dumadami yung kotse sa daan, you feel safe, pero yung mismong mistakes mo as a driver, nagiging mas dangerous to other people. Eh. So we need to make it so that people are less reliant on private motor vehicles for their own transportation. And the number one way to do that is to start with safety. The way you get to safety, we have to have good enforcement systems to curtail reckless driving and to curtail even what you call violent driving, like what we saw in Canada recently, where where cars can even be used as weapons, for instance, in incidents of mass violence. We see this in other countries, and that's what things like bollards are for, where you have infrastructure that can protect high security areas that are constructed well and that are able to really protect vulnerable road users when the vehicles are used intentionally. And I think that's also something which we have to recognize going forward. And I think lastly siguro, it's also good to have a culture of I guess like education and teaching people that when you drive, hindi naman sa you're trying to look out for like all the other reckless drivers. I think we all have to be more humble na recognizing that even our own errors as drivers, even tayo as drivers, we're not perfect. So we also have to say na okay, kung medyo kulang ka sa tulog, if you went to a restaurant and you've had something to drink, maybe then wag ka muna mag-drive. Meron naman tayong options na Grab or whatever. At mas murang bayarin mo na lang yung overnight parking
kaysa sa... Ang dami
na
nga ngayon options, actually.
Yeah.
But do you agree with different cities manning their own traffic enforcement? Or does that need to be centralized? How is it in other countries?
Well, I think the thing with traffic enforcement is that you need to be able to get to a regime where the enforcement is consistent. So I think whether it's...
Iba kasi daw yung penalties per city. Yun nga yung nagkakalituhan doon.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. Parang magkaiba man yung penalties. I think yung mas important thing is that when you go from one city to another, parang dapat, when you go from one city to the next, hindi pwedeng sa City 1 may batas at may consistent yung enforcement. Tapos biglang sa City 2,
so
parang free for all.
would you think a centralized system is better in terms of enforcement?
Well, I think whether it's centralized or not, I think for me is not
That's not the point. No?
I think it's not always the point, and I think that question can be sometimes hard to answer. But I think what's important is that we arrive at a system where the enforcement can be consistent. Because in order to make the enforcement centralized, I think that might sometimes require agreements between our cities, which I think sometimes take a while to get to. But I think the number one thing which we all have to commit to is that this road safety emergency has to stop and has to be dealt with.
Well, when you said it was a road safety emergency, part of me kind of thought, is the rise really because of the lack of proper laws to deter this kind of behavior from drivers, or is it because dumadami na rin yung car sales? I mean, the more cars you have, obviously, the more potential for accidents. Isn't that rise also directly related to that number? And are we really supposed to be alarmed?
Well, I think when you talk about parang whether it's the fault of the laws or the fault that there's more cars on the road, I think parang if you want to look at like everything, parang all the driving behavior that can be frowned upon, yung drunk driving, distracted driving, may batas na tayo for that. So we actually have a lot of laws. I think this is something which people say na parang we have a lot of laws, but one big problem is the implementation. That's where we talked about where technology can make an impact. But I think when you talk about yung dumadami yung kotse sa kalsada natin, I think that also goes back to the fact that the car becomes a first option for people because they feel it's their only way to get to safety. And I think parang minsan ganung mentality yung dapat natin i-correct na hindi porke bumili ka ng kotse ay automatic mas safe ka. In fact, parang mas malaki yung nagiging risk mo and mas malaki yung nagiging responsibility mo because now your actions can determine the safety of other people.
Do we have a city here in the Philippines that you feel could be a model for a more walkable, safer city?
Well, you know, I think many cities are trying to do well in their own way. Parang I'm not really I'm not really sure if parang I would say that like one city is like doing better than all the others. But I think you go within every city, you go within even national government. I think you'll find lots of walkability champions, and sometimes even at the barangay level, you'll find public officials and staffers that are willing to do better for the.
What is
for
the
their
sign
cities.
for you of a city that has a good model? Pag nakikita mo ito, alam mo ay okay dito.
Yeah. Well, I think you know if you have a city where people can kind of walk while when people can I think bring their children outside easily, where parang even if it's in the middle of the week, they can bring their kids outside to play, where senior citizens can go out by themselves and be independent and walk on our streets. I think I'll always judge the results of a city's transportation by how independent it can make its very vulnerable members. So parang how does it serve children, women, PWDs, seniors? I think when you see a city where those people are visible because they're not, hindi sila parang nakakulong sa bahay nila, di ba? Parang when you see people that are out and about and able to live their own lives regardless of their physical ability, I think magandang indicator yun.
Well, we do hope that these accidents will have government listen to the people more. After all, the road should be for the people. Maraming salamat for joining us and sharing us your insight on this. We have public transport expert and advocate Rob C. Stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back right after a short break. I'm Gretchen Hall, and this is Morning Matters. The Philippines logged a suspected digital fraud rate of 13.4% in 2024, more than double the global average of 5.4%. Now, that's according to global information solutions provider TransUnion. This marks the fifth consecutive year the country has exceeded the global fraud rate. The report also found that 74% of Filipinos were targeted by scams, with 34% losing money, averaging $768 or over 44,700 pesos. Fraud was highest in online communities at 19.2%, followed by retail 13%, both surpassing global benchmarks. And to get insights regarding this report, we have DICT spokesperson Assistant Secretary Renato Aboy Paraiso joining us via Zoom. Magandang umaga sa iyo, Asek.
Magandang umaga, Gretchen, sa inyong mga taga-panood, taga-subaybay, taga-pakinig. Thanks for having us in the show.
Okay, Asek, a digital fraud rate at 13.4%, more than double the global average of 5.4%. Were you surprised by this report, or it's in keeping with what we've been seeing for the past months and the past years?
Well, una-una, hindi namin pa tinitingnan yung global report ng TransUnion. No? However, the ICT has actually been implementing measures to combat digital fraud. Recently, the DICT, pinapalakas po natin yung isang attached agency natin, yung Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center natin, na maglo-launch tayo ng rapid response channel in that flagging yung mga harmful and unlawful online content more effectively. Additionally, ang DICT po has partnered with organizations like Scam Watch Philippines to encourage public to use yung eGov app po natin at saka yung 13262 natin na hotline. So, to answer your question squarely, yes, we are cognizant of the fact na medyo mataas yung rate ng online fraud dito sa ating bansa.
Okay, Asek, ano bang ibig sabihin ng digital fraud rate? Paano ba minimeasure yan? Ayan ba yung mga successful na naloko? Pag sinabi nating yung numero na yan, yung kinakount lang yan ay yung mga naloko na.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we haven't really tackled the issue of yung report na ho na yan. And we don't know the matrix that they're using when measuring global fraud.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot to see there still to pick on. But India led with the highest digital fraud rate at 19%, followed by the Philippines and Dominican Republic at 10.9%. Is there a pattern that you're seeing with these countries?
Yeah. If you see all the countries that rank high on this particular list, I think that the similarities is heavy users sa internet at saka sa online, heavily reliant online. That's one. And second medyo mababa pa yung digital literacy rate ng mga gumagamit ng internet dito sa ating dito sa mga bansa na nasa listahan na yan. So, I think we've recognized the challenges if we're seeing those patterns. And I think we have programs in place na po, lalong-lalo na sa with the new administration of the ICT led by Secretary Henry Aguda. I think the trust now of the ICT, particularly the CICCs, to make the internet safer for everyone. I think yun yung drive ng good vibes lang sa internet na program ni Sec Henry A.
Actually, masakit dito sa report na ito is yung money part that the Filipinos lose. It stood at $768 or 44,700 pesos. And I remember talking to the DICT or some cybersecurity experts about financial scams being transferred now from SMS to online messaging platforms. So what scams are abound at this point in time? And napapansin ninyo, may mga bago ba?
Ako, walang bago pero mas maraming pinalakas na yung mga syempre andiyan yung mga retail fraud kasi again, this is really the product of us being reliant on several online businesses or online applications. So and may baba pa yung literacy natin or yung awareness natin on how to protect ourselves. Like sa retail fraud, financial services fraud, yung account takeover fraud, community platform fraud, logistics and public sector fraud. So all of this has to do with yung mga ginagawa natin everyday online like online marketing, online transactions. I think the very important thing to stress here, Gretchen, no, is no one would be a victim of scams kung walang participation nung victim themselves. For example, sa online financial fraud, pag binibigay natin yung mga one-time passwords natin, or we click on the links on sa mga SMS or sa OTTS na binapadala sa atin. So I think that is where the ICT, CICC should step up, is really on a campaign for the public to be aware of, this particular fact wouldn't happen if walang participation natin.
Okay. Another thing would be tracing the actual roots of these scams. No, meron ba tayong system in place that makes it easier to track or to attach the numbers to the identities of the persons owning, let's say, an e-wallet account? Madali na lang ba yun mahanap ngayon? And how are we working with the private institutions for that?
Well, first, it's not that easy. Pero there's a system in place now. Especially now that there's a drive really to explore and partner up with the private sectors. Recently, I've attended a meeting with the NTC led by Commissioner Ella. We met with the MNOs for the purposes of discussing on yung sinasabi nyo, yung tracing and attribution. But independent of that particular conversation and that particular partnership with the MNOs and other private sector partners with regards to technologies, CICC has already purchased and it will be procuring several systems and several applications that would make this tracking, investigation, and attribution more effective dito sa online scams.
Kasi naalala ko na scam din ako online at pinuntahan ko yung police at sinabi sa akin, naku, medyo mahirap at matagal yung proseso para lang unang-una na makita kung sino nagmamayari ng mga number na ito dahil hindi lahat ng e-wallet ay effective yung kanilang verification system. At para ibigay sa'yo yung record nung private companies, medyo matagal din na proseso, no? It requires a court order and all of those things. It's good to know you're fast-tracking that. But when it comes to the elections, what is the DICT doing to make sure this doesn't spill over to protecting the integrity of the upcoming elections?
Well, maraming ho ang ginagawa natin when it comes to the midterm elections. First and foremost, kahapon in-announce na ni Chairman George Garcia the opening of the Threat Monitoring Center located dito sa DICT, particularly dito sa CICC It's a partnership between CICC and COMELEC to monitor every online threat that would be coming our way, especially during the elections. And the period immediately after that, kasi the concerns are unang-una yung hacking ng systems, pero medyo okay na tayo doon, medyo secure na tayo kasi we conduct regular VAPT testings, we conduct monitoring of our systems nung sa COMELEC, the ICT being a member of the COMELEC Advisory Council. But more importantly, I think the bigger problem is the attack on the integrity of the elections. So talagang binabantayan din natin dito sa Threat Monitoring Center ng COMELEC and CICC yung pag-spread ng mga fake news at saka ng mga disinformation, misinformation, malinformation when it comes to the integrity of the elections. We expect nga, Gretchen, na after the elections, mas dadami yan para sasabihin, we have to doubt the results of the elections.
To discredit the elections.
Yes. So yun yung talagang purpose ng Threat Monitoring Center na to. And this is the first of its kind in our country. I think this is the first time it's been established na 24/7 na yung operations namin. And this shows yung concept ng digital bayanihan ng DICT wherein COMELEC, CICC, the NBI, NTC, the PNP, I think the PCO already are sending the people to monitor to man the center also. So talagang it's a whole of government, it's a whole of society approach talaga kasi we also partnered up with Google, Meta, and ByteDance, and I think even X para dito sa sa ano natin na to sa campaign
Well,
natin.
Asik, I'd love to come there and visit and see what operations are like when it comes to curbing all of these scams and all of these disinformation efforts. In the meantime, maraming salamat. We ran out of time, but there is a deeper discussion to this. Maraming salamat para sa impormasyon. We have DICT spokesperson, Assistant Secretary Renato Aboy Paraiso. Don't go away. More matters to discuss right after the break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The reward for information on the co-mastermind in the killing of businessman Anson Ke has been raised to 10 million pesos. Authorities are tracking down Wen Li Gong, also known as Kelly Tan Lim, who allegedly set up Ke's abduction. The PNP discovered that ransom money went through 2 casino junket operators, including one owned by Chinese national Li Duan Wang. Investigators say the money was converted to crypto and scattered across multiple e-wallets. In April, President Bongbong Marcos vetoed the bill, granting Wang a Filipino citizenship over alleged threats on national security. The PNP assures it is coordinating with local and international agencies to freeze the funds and track everyone involved. And in sports, Filipina tennis star Alex Ayala has reached a career-high world ranking of number 70 in the WTA. The 19-year-old athlete achieved the feat after a strong showing in the Madrid Open, including a round 1 win over Bulgaria's Victoria Tomova. She exited in round 2 after a hard-fought loss to Poland's Iga Swiatek, who avenged her earlier defeat to Ayala in Miami. Ayala has now secured direct entry into the main draw of the Grand Slams, including the French Open this May. She will next compete in the Italian Open as she continues to gain momentum in her breakout season. Good news to end Tuesday, but it is the beginning of today. But that's it for today's episode of Morning Matters. My name is Gretchen Ho. You're One News, all sides, all the time.